Hello, ladies and gentlemen, and I am GamerGod Matt here. Today we will be talking about Israel in the beginning. The prevailing belief is that in roughly around 12,000 BC, Israelites resided in the area of Canaan. By 500 BC, some of the Israelites had split away, becoming known as Jews, and established the kingdom of Judah. I'm sorry if I pronounce some of these names wrong. They are very hard to read and pronounce. Judah's capital became Jerusalem, and King David and King Solomon had resigned for many years. Now, we'll talk about the reign of tensions, the region of Tennesseans. Tennesseans and Palestinians were ever present. They were split kingdoms that created conflict and pressure from surrounding kingdoms and to the threat of powerful empires nearby, such as the Egyptians, the Babylonians, and the Persians. The diaspora. Eventually, the Babylonians, I can't pronounce that name, put an end to Judah's independence. Many Jews fled to surrounding areas. The Persians conquered Babylonian and allowed the Jews to return. And, well, many did. The diaspora continues. The Roman Empire in the 1st century BC conquered the region, resulted in a wide scale of destruction, exploitation, and genocide of the Jews. They were exiled and persecuted. By the 7th century CE, the region of Palestine had been conquered yet again. This time, it was by the Arabs. It remained under Arab and later Muslim occupancy for 1,300 years. The Christian Crusaders attempted to regain the territory for Christianity. The Crusaders often pillaged and massacred Jews they encountered. The Crusaders, in their attempts to eradicate the Jews, were very unsuccessful. Now, there was centuries of exclusion by the 19th centuries. The Ottoman Empire had the region under its control. The Ottoman Empire was both Turkish and Islamic at the time. The Arabs still resided in Palestine. Most came to be known as Palestinians, and they had lived in the region for many hundreds of years by this point. The Jews still resided in the region, but most had fled to Poland, Germany, Russia, and those primarily. Now, over time, an idea emerged among the dispersed Jews of returning to their homeland of Israel. Some Jews had already returned, fleeing the pogroms in Eastern Europe. This belief, called Zionism, Zionism, grew strong. This belief was that the Jews would only be safe within their own country. This also focused on the Israel for the Jewish state, obtaining Israel for the Jewish state. Zion, the Jerusalem hill from which David and Solomon ruled. So that's where the name came from. Now, we have the British Mandate. By the end of World War I, the Ottoman Empire had collapsed. The League of Nations was placed in Palestine the League of Nations had placed Palestine under British control. Britain was mandated to keep order in Palestine. Thousands of Jews returned to Israel in the 1920s. Thousands more then soon returned in the 1930s as Nazism emerged in Germany. Now we come to the end of World War II. After a few thousand years of life in exile, persecution, programs and terrorism, and, of course, genocide. After the horrors of the Holocaust, many in Europe began to accept the idea of Zionism. The Jews would only be safe with a home country. The United Nations, the UN had been created at the World War I, at the end of, not World War I, but World War II, due to the fact that the League of Nations had failed, but the UN was created at the end of World War II in an effort to ensure peace throughout the world. One of its first issues was what to do with these Jews. They had been living in exile for a couple hundred years. Their homeland is occupied by a population that had been living there for just a few thousand years, and were, of course, not responsible for exiling the Jews. The pressures of Zionism was resounding at the time. So, they decided to create Israel. But Britain struggled to maintain order in post-World War II Palestine. Jews in Palestine struggle over the territory. The Jewish populations were struggling against the British as well. Britain announced that, hey, we're done. They withdrawed. The UN creates the country of Israel. Territory was split into two states, an independent Jewish state and an independent Arab state. Jerusalem was to be governed internationally, so they would share. Now, this really didn't work out, considering the fact that it had a rocky start. All the Western democracies in the Union voted in favor for creating the State of Israel, while all the Middle Eastern countries in the Union voted against creating the State of Israel. Now, since the UN and the Western democracy has the majority rule, Israel is created anyway, despite the protest by the Middle Eastern countries in the UN. Israel is made, and they are constantly on the defensive against the surrounding Arab world countries, which were aggressive. They protected their Jewish state and successfully fought many wars to defend itself, and even gained land in these wars, and these were known as the Gaza Strip, the West Bank. Now, when Israel took over the Palestine, many lived as refugees from their homeland in many surrounding countries that were under the occupation of Israel. They were either to leave or live under the authority of the Jewish state of Israel and occupied territories, which were the West Bank and the Gaza Strip. Now we go to the other side of this, the resistance groups. The PLO, or the Palestine Liberation Organization, began as a terrorist group, which is now known as a modern organization who does not use terrorism anymore, but uses diplomacy to represent the Palestinians. Now we have the Hamas, Palestine-based Islamic extremist group in Sunni. Their primary goal is to establish an Islamic state over all Palestine. We have the Hezbollah, which are an Islamic extremist group in Shiite, began in Lebanon. Their primary goal is to eliminate the state of Israel through terrorism. After countless number of lives were lost, after continuous tensions of warfare and thousands of displaced refugees, and more than 65 years of existence, the extremists still exist on both sides, pressing the issues to this day. New issues have been bubbling to the surface since. Now, most moderns, however, have come to the realization that there is only one valuable solution: a coexistence. Basically, exactly what the UN had been created for in the first place: religion. The region is the birthplace and or the holy site to three major religions: Judaism, Christianism, and Islam. All three are connected. They each have the same God, and they believe in the same God. They hold the city of Jerusalem as a sacred site. Now, here are some questions asked. Will religion continue to divide the region further, resulting in even more strife? Or can the common bonds between these religions be an unifying element? Once again, this is Gamer Gone Mad here. I hope you have enjoyed this brief history of Israel and how it came to be and what it is today. If you enjoyed this, make sure to like, comment, or subscribe, and maybe share this with your friends. Maybe they might find it quite interesting. This is Gamer Gone Mad, signing off.